You might have to like edit out some nervous laughter as soon as
Welcome. And today we are going to be joined by a very special guest. Today's guest is someone whose passion for youth and education has taken her from small town Twin Falls, Idaho, all the way to the heart of Central Africa. Lita Summers was born in California, raised right here in Twin Falls, Idaho, and has spent her career working with students and families from a wide range of backgrounds. With a foundation in early education development, Lita spent 5 years collaborating with behavioral specialists and occupational therapists, gaining hands-on experience in helping children learn to regulate their emotions. Oh, I need you in my life, Lita. I need to learn that too. She later led a youth program for high school English language learners, working closely with educators and offering after-school tutoring to support student success. Most recently, Lita took her passion across the globe to Kinshasa,
Kinshasa,
Congo, where she partnered with a nonprofit called Beautiful Blessings, a daycare providing free childcare to Congolese mothers pursuing their education. Lita believes that learning doesn't just happen in a classroom, it happens in life. And her time living in a war-torn country without knowing the language and far outside her comfort zone became one of the most transformative learning experiences of all. Lita, I am so excited to have you on the No Name podcast show and welcome.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here, and you make me sound way cooler than I actually am.
This is just 1.5 paragraphs of your incredible being self. Where would you like to start? Where do we start having a conversation with Lita?
Oh man, I guess, if anyone just accidentally stumbles upon this, if I can say one thing, I just want to say I am a better person. I am more understanding, more compassionate. I am wiser, and I'm a lot more cooler because of being surrounded by people who are different than I am, people who think differently, believe differently, look differently. I've had this amazing privilege of going to other places and experiencing other cultures, and it's made me a better human being. And as you were reading that, it all sounds great. And I'm not going to lie, I am pretty awesome. But even as I've gone and I've worked with other people and organizations, and I have the things that I definitely offer, helping kids regulate their emotions. Those kids also taught me self-control and patience because, just thinking of an instance of helping a kid strong sit and work through his anger and, was like, hey, can I share a secret with you? I get angry too. And he was like, what? Adults get angry? So even just as I'm serving or teaching or doing whatever I'm doing, it's also for me. It's,
There's so much there. I'm hearing you talk, what is even strong sit?
Oh, strong sit.
There's so much there. I'm already noting. I want us to unpack so much of what you're saying. And you are awesome in so many ways. That's why you're one of the guests I really wanted to talk to even before you left to Congo. We met before you left, and I thought your story when you're back, you need to share it because we talked about this, and I made a note on strong sit, but we talked about this, how about a decade or so ago, statistically, less than 10% of Americans owned passports. And now that is around 30-40%. And I think really that has to do with the younger generation growing up and being just so much more eager to explore and travel because the screens in our hand have brought the world to us. And now, young people, the younger generation wants to like follow through and go to these Insta pictures, Insta places, Insta adventures in real time, in real life. And so that statistic really shocked me, that in a free society, a decade and a half ago, only 10% of the population owned a passport. And we talked about that, how so few people leave the country and travel, and very few leave the state. And even more shocking to me is when I meet people who have never left the town they live in.
Have never left even Twin Falls. Yeah, and I think social media definitely it is helpful in that way. Social media, I think like there's two sides to it. I don't love social media, but it does have some benefits that you can't deny. And I think, like you're saying, that is one of them. Of you see these other places, you see different cultures and festivals and all these really amazing things. For me, though, it was, luckily in Twin Falls, we have the refugee center. And I worked at the refugee center and did a youth program and fell in love with all my kids and their families. But just found that I had a special place in my heart for Congolese women and children in particular.
I was going to ask why,
Yeah.
how, and why Congo? And was that your first trip out of Twin or out of Idaho or out of even the country? Was that your first time traveling?
No, it wasn't even my first time going to Africa.
Okay.
Yeah.
When was your first time traveling to Africa?
So I was looking into going to Congo by partnering with an organization called Every Child Ministries. But I was going to Congo to partner up with Beautiful Blessings. So I was in the process of, I wanted to know more about the organization itself and how it supported its missionaries. So they were doing a vision trip, and they were allowing people to come to Uganda to see different programs that they were having there. So my first trip to Africa, I actually went to Uganda, and I got to experience some of the cities, but also experience some of the villages.
You're already working with child development and...
Oh, yes. At this point, before I went to Uganda, I was working at a local high school here in Twin, and I was working part-time at the refugee center, but also was partnering with the local high school and got into the high schools during 2020, COVID, which was like the fact that we got to be in the school during that time was insane. But
what were you doing with the high schoolers?
So
what was your work at the high school here?
They hired me to run an after-school tutoring program for English language learners. But I would go at like lunchtime and help with specifically American government, because these high schoolers, I mean, my kids, not only is English not their first language, American history is not their history.
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked with a wonderful, wonderful woman who taught American government, and she was ESL trained. I hope it's okay that I say her name. This was Wendy Munoz. And if you don't know this woman, you need to. She is, she's so kind and gentle, and she's such an advocate for not only the kids, but for other teachers and just anyone. Man, she was all about lifting everyone up, because it was 2020 and it was really hard. But she worked with me and partnered with me, and she put in the time and the effort to modify assignments. And when it came to finals, like there was a really big final that my ESL kids and I were preparing for. And she gave me the final. She let me do a Kahoot. Like 2 weeks before the final, every day at lunch, my kids and I were going over the quiz. And then she allowed me to read the questions to my students. And even just me reading the question versus them having to read it and translate it. Like, in going to Congo, I I now got this experience of language learning
Yeah.
that my ESL kids have been going through.
Yeah.
Learning a language is extremely hard. It's exhausting on the mind and the body. So imagine being a high schooler. English is not your first language. American history is not your history. And you have all these other things that high schoolers are going through: social media, bullying, just trying to fit in, trying to find your place, all the things, right? And then you have language learning on top of that. And what I love about Wendy and all of the ESL department was they were like, you're not alone in this. This is really hard. And there's nothing wrong with you. Because sometimes we would hear our kids be like, oh, I'm so stupid. It's like, no, it is not you. This is not your history. It's not your language. And this is really, really hard. But you don't have to do it alone. But you do have to show up. But we are here with you, and we've got you. We will help you through this class. And just the fact like I got to be a part of that, experience that, and be a part of this amazing team was huge. And then I got to go and experience what my kids experience of like,
Yeah.
I'm in another country. This is not my history. This is not my language. And I have even more respect for the refugee kids and their families.
I was one of those students, and it felt like you couldn't breathe, because language is a lifeline. And when we think of borders, when we think of societies and nations and countries, we think of borders, but there's that also border of language. So like if you travel from here to Europe or to England, or you can still express yourself and understand and navigate. So you have that lifeline. So although the border, the nationality, and the borders have changed, the language really allows for one to assimilate instantly. But when you don't have language, you're in a way a mute, and you're navigating and you don't know what's going on. And then with English especially, it was so difficult. Like, to learn English was so difficult. For the longest time, I was illiterate. I had conversational English down, but I didn't have reading, writing, spelling. And if you don't have the reading, so when you said you were reading the questions and the students could grasp the question because you're listening, you're hearing it, you have conversational English, it is so much different than if you read that question yourself. What comes to mind for me is like a math problem. I was so good at math until math became more wordy and word problems.
Yeah.
And then I could not decipher and pull the math out of the English words that were there to be able to do the solution. So I couldn't plug things in because I couldn't pull from there. And that's where having conversational English down, which is great, is secondary to having like literacy.
Yeah.
Having literacy down. It wasn't till after high school that I realized I was illiterate. And in university, I took backward steps to go back and learn English, the structure of English, grammar, reading, spelling. And then I felt able to actually function in this society, because just talking isn't enough, right?
I mean, definitely not at first, but I think the other thing I hope that people can understand is, go back to infants and babies. Their first step isn't reading a book. They listen. They hear the adults and the people around them in their life. They listen, and then they try to imitate, and they babble. It's gibberish at first. But we don't look at a baby and be like, hey, what are you doing? I was incredibly blessed. I got to go to a training on how to learn a language. And they were so great in that they explained this to me. And they're like, the first step is listening. The second step is babbling. you're going to babble. You're not going to say it correctly, and that's okay because you're learning. And then the other things will come. Reading and writing and Lingala will come, but you've got to get these steps down first. And so that gave me a little bit more insight and understanding to my kids of why reading those tests. And also, like, some of these tests, especially when you get to high school, one question is really like 5 sentences. It's like 3 questions in one. So having teachers and people who were willing to partner with me into condensing that or modifying that, and then even allowing me to read the question was huge because, yeah, I think listening has to come first.
And it's like less intimidating too when you have a teacher that you've grown to, just the sound of your voice, you've grown to take instruction from in like a comfortable way. It's less intimidating than, you're reading something on this like scary test.
Yeah.
So how was it? What did it feel like to experience going to a country where you didn't understand, where you became like that English learner student, but now you're, opposite. You're now in the part of the world where you didn't understand and you didn't have the lifeline of language, accessible to you.
The minute I arrived there, it was like, it wasn't even real. It was like a dream. Like, I can't believe I'm finally here. And then I had a couple days rest to kind of settle in. And then Monday morning, I started language classes. And I'm like, I have a plan and we're going to do this. And I had a really great setup and training on how to learn a language. And I had Sharise and Emily and a lot of other missionaries that were there that had gone through it already and were there to help me with language learning. So I had a really great support system, which not everybody has that. And then it was finding the right language teacher, because my experience with my first language helper was she was going really fast and then was extremely frustrated when I didn't remember things. And I was like, oh, this isn't a good
You're
fit.
like, I'm jet lagged, lady.
I'm like,
I can't remember these.
So we tried it for about a week and a half or 2 weeks. And then it was like, this just really isn't a good fit. And then I met Mama Taro. And she, so in Congo, if anyone is older than you, they're your mama or your papa. That's just how it is. So we call her Mama Taro, but she is, it's not just out of respect. She is mama. She is lovely and kind and patient and a teacher. So she knew how to exercise patience. She knew how to be encouraging. She was like, hey, you're fine. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting this. And she's like, you've only been here 4 days. So she was, she made it less scary.
Yeah.
And also, but then I had to make a shift because I had my language lessons, but I needed to get out in the community and practice what I was learning in language class. And that was terrifying.
Why? Why was it terrifying?
Because there's this weird thing about being an adult where you're afraid to make a fool of yourself. Whereas babies and kids, they just don't care. They're like...
even though you were somewhere where no one knew you?
Yeah.
Isn't that strange? Yeah.
Yeah. I've never... no one's ever said that before. So I'm like, yeah, what do I care? Nobody knows me. But I will say, Sharise and Emily both they really pushed and challenged me because I was really struggling to get out of the apartment and practice what I was learning in language class. And again, true friends will tell you what you need to hear and they'll give you a little kick and be like, you gotta get out there. So they did, and oh my goodness, the people in our neighborhood, We had commercial place that was like in the center, and there was the bakery and the supermarket, and just walking around the neighborhood, like I knew I was safe and I could do it by myself. And it was very simple. Like I learned phrases. So I say, "Mote, nazali Lita, nazali ko yakala Lingala, muke." So, hi, I'm Lita. I'm learning Lingala little by little. Muke. So
That sounds very good.
thank you.
And you still remember it too.
Oh.
And Lingala is the official language. There's other languages in Congo.
So the national language, if I'm remembering correctly, is French.
Yes.
So if you go to a bank or if you go to
Like
a
the
grocery
administrative language.
store, yes. But mostly, like if you're in the neighborhoods, or especially if you're in a poor neighborhood, you need to know Lingala. And whereas in Macampan, where we lived, like if I went down to the bakery, I heard French, a lot of French. But if I was going to Kaluga, where Beautiful Blessings is, then I need to know Lingala, because that's what is more commonly spoken in that neighborhood.
And you started speaking the language and started feeling more of an emotional connection with people.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was so incredibly kind. As soon as I said, "Nazale ko yakala Lingala," they were like, "Oh my gosh!" They were so grateful and happy that I was making an effort to learn the language. There were lots of mamas with like little vegetable stands, and they would like shout at me, "Tomat."
Teaching you.
Pardon, yeah, they wanted to teach me too.
Yeah.
Everyone is so willing to help you and to help you practice. And I mean, this was just, the people were lovely and kind and incredibly patient. And so when you have that, I think it's a lot easier to get out there and not be afraid to make a fool of yourself. Because people laughed at me all the time, but it wasn't like a ha, you're so stupid laugh. It was like, you're adorable. Yeah. We're going to help you say that correctly.
People do love sharing language. We don't really think of language as something like food and culture and music we share, but language is something that is, people love to share it with each other. And newcomers, whether you're over there or people are here, offering people words and offering people the correct way of saying words, it's just like grounded in humility and pride and understanding that this person needs this word. They need to know how to navigate. I'm offering them, a word at a time, ability to explore the culture more, connect with people more. Like they just give you like tidbits, like here's a tomato, here's along the way. And doesn't that just feel so good? It just feels so supportive, like a collective support for your experience there.
It really does. And I think one of the scary things that I was afraid of, and like not only wanting to not make a fool of myself, but not wanting to offend anybody. And I think that's a big thing with going to another place and speaking the language when you're not fluent, because oftentimes when you're learning is making mistakes. Mm-hmm. That's part of it. And when I went to, when I started getting out in the neighborhood and practicing, no one ever got mad at me or was like, you stupid American. Like, no one ever got mad at me for not saying it right. They may have laughed or giggled. Again, not in a malicious way, but they were like, we got you.
And like proud of you for trying.
Yes.
It's a difficult, every language is, but it's a difficult language to learn. And
I will say I feel like Lingala is easier than English. There are some crazy rules in English.
English has not just crazy rules, but the English language has, just the history of it being such a blend of, Latin, French, German, Anglo-Saxon, and extraterrestrial, I think, influence. But you're right, like it's a difficult language because unlike other languages, there really is rules, and then the rules are meant to be broken. That's the rules of the English language. So comb, home, all of these poem, right? Like comb, home, poem. For example, same sound, same alphabet, different spelling, random spelling, silent letter spelling for no reason. And and how would you know that? You wouldn't know that until you make a mistake and someone teaches you. And then you have to remember, like, no, it's poem and it's comb and put a B there. And it's so, like the language is kind of bipolar. It seems like the language just does not want to follow its own rules. But that makes sense because it is a mix of so many languages.
I noticed with Lingala early on, it's more phonetic. So I can look at a word and I can guess and be pretty close to how I'm going to pronounce this word.
The letters make the only sound that letter makes is what that letter is.
Whereas French, I'm like, what?
What's happening? What's happening with French letters? And I'm so excited that you got to experience language from both perspectives. And I imagine that has given you so much more appreciation for people that, just understanding how it is for them.
Oh, absolutely.
To learn a new language.
Yeah. And how, again, just, it is exhausting on the mind and the body. Like it drains you. And that's just one aspect. Like, I don't think anyone out there, especially the refugees who are coming to Twin Falls, like, and I say that because, like, that's close to my heart. Like, they're not just in a classroom learning a language. We're all humans. We all have stories. We all have trauma or hard things that we're dealing with. And then you're learning a language on top of that. It is utterly exhausting. And so to have that community, you need community, like to learn and grow at any capacity, not just learning a language, but just we need community. So I think in order to go to another culture, another place, get immersed in it, you need those kind people who will shout and help you learn that language. People who will shout at you, "Tomat, tomat," with a smile on their face. And, it wasn't long. It wasn't long at all before I would walk around my neighborhood and I could not step outside the apartment door and not have someone shouting at me, "Mama Lita, Mama Lita, embote." And I was like, "Embote." And
that's when language sticks.
Yes.
When you mentioned the kindness of your teachers, the encouragement, the shouting with a smile, anything that has to do with memory, learning, has to have emotion as the glue. That's why people can remember lyrics to songs. They don't even know they remembered the entire song, and somehow they know every single lyric of that song that they even hate, right? Because music is emotional. And anytime energy is in motion, memory is activated. And what you were, when you were referring to, the people arriving, the newcomers arriving here that are in the classroom learning that language, for the adults especially, it's very difficult. For like my own parents, it was almost nearly impossible, and my grandparents, nearly impossible to learn the language, not because they didn't want to, not because they didn't know how to learn, but because the level of wounds and traumas to their brain, to their actual brain, and the level of the energy of trauma moving in their bodies still, the hypervigilance and the PTSD, the complex PTSD, did not allow for things to stick. It did not allow for memory to capture language. And they would get so frustrated. And it's not an intelligence quality. It's not an intelligence capacity. It's an emotional availability to learning. And so it's almost like we put people in a place. We have this expectation, this really almost cruel expectation.
Not almost. It is cruel.
It is a cruel
I'm sorry. I'm very
expectation.
direct. I'm blunt. So let's
To
just call it what
have
it is.
people, to transplant them from like a war zone and drop them from the sky into a new society with new ways, rules, laws, economy, constitution, personal autonomy, agency, versus where they were. And on top of that, they need to learn all this at the same time so they could play the game right and learn a language, but their bodies don't have the capacity yet to grasp. And that I learned that way later, because I did internalize lacking the intelligence, and I did internalize the judgment of my own adults in our community and maybe my own adults in my life as, well, what is wrong with them? Until later learning about complex PTSD and understanding that the capacity, the software is not able to learn. I didn't say that right. Is not maybe able to grasp what is being learned. Same with a lot of the young adults, a lot of the students that are in our high schools. They are doing great, but maybe they are struggling because emotionally some of that trauma is circling in the bodies, and it's making the brain also having that limited capacity on grasping and memorizing.
100%. Can I just say, like, I love that you said yet. Don't have the capacity yet.
Mm-hmm.
And, as you're talking, that was my experience. I love learning. I've always loved learning, but growing up, I really struggled in school. And I internalized it, and I thought there was something wrong with me. I'm stupid. I'm not smart enough. Blah, 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 blah. And I told myself that for years. And then I was studying early education at CSI. I'm actually, fun fact, going back to finish my degree, so I'm really excited. But I remember studying the foundation of early childhood development. And I'm sitting in my bed reading this textbook, and the gal is saying, picture it like a cement roadblock blocking your neural pathways. When a child doesn't feel safe, when they don't have their basic needs being met, it is not impossible, but there is a roadblock. So it's not impossible to learn, but man, it wasn't that I was stupid. It wasn't that I was lazy or that I didn't want to learn. There was real stuff going on in my home that I had no control of. And that does things to not only your brain, but your overall physical well-being. And so, yeah, we got to be really careful how we speak with others, in just exercising patience. Like, man, why aren't you getting this yet? And it's like, oh, there are some real valid reasons, and it has nothing to do with being lazy or not having a desire to learn. Trauma is real, and our minds and our bodies and our emotions are all connected. And like, there's science there. Like, it's real. So for people who are coming here to Twin Falls from another country, from war zones, and they have that trauma, it breaks my heart when I see people get impatient. Of like, man, why can't you guys just learn English already? And it's like, no. You need to stop speaking, and you need to listen to that person's story and what they've been through. And we need to make them feel safe and welcome. And then learning can happen.
And this concrete block, I like how you explained that, because it is that way.
Mm-hmm.
These neural pathways are at a prime time in a development of a child, are trying to fuse as many, pave and fuse as many pathways as possible. And at the same time, and it's not just the newcomers, it's not just present this trauma body doesn't just present in newcomers.
Oh, no.
Specifically in Idaho, it's sometimes unfair. Idaho gets like a bad rep for being academically performing low in the nation. I served on the school board, and I would hear that the question shouldn't just be like, why are the test scores a certain way in Idaho? The higher resolution question is, what is home life like for children?
Oh, yeah.
Idaho's children. I'm not saying refugees or migrants I'm talking about Idaho's, born in Idaho, born in the United States. How is life for those children in the home? There was a statistic I think it was with health and welfare or with child development, like ICCP. I think they were presenting a statistic that 2/3 of Idaho's children present symptoms of PTSD similar to children in war zones. And I was really shocked by that. Now, even if that statistic, let's say, isn't exactly accurate, even if it was half, right? Or even 40%, it makes you ask why. They're presenting the same symptoms, the same PTSD symptoms as a child in a war zone. Because their war zone is different. Their war zone is food insecurity. Their war zone is parents out of the picture, addiction. There's grandparents are raising them. There's shelter insecurity. They're couch surfing.
Yeah.
They have inconsistency in where they're going to sleep. They're sleeping in their car, or they're at aunt's house or mom's house, and that insecurity is in their body. It's in their molecules. It's felt. So that feeling of feeling safe and welcome, in order for learning to occur, these chronic conditions, everything from food insecurity, chronic poverty, generational cycles of addiction, of violence in the home, and parents locked up and not in the home, whether both or one. Those conditions, those are real Idaho conditions. They're real, like even where we live, Twin Falls.
Oh, yeah.
Factors in a Idahoan child's life. So it's not a far stretch, and it's definitely not an isolated situation for a refugee child. We have more in common. Our children have a lot more in common, even in their trauma body, than we want to always know about or think about or admit. And learning for them is difficult. And so that shows in the test scores.
Yeah. And I just love that. We have more in common than we admit. And also, I was that Idaho kid. My childhood wasn't easy. Don't get me wrong. Now that I'm an adult and I have more understanding, I understand my parents a little bit more. Not saying that I've got it all, but yeah, it wasn't easy growing up. My mom had many addictions, and my dad was a truck driver, and he had to work all the time just so we could have food on the table. My mom had many vices, many expensive vices, and that was hard. And so, again, internalizing, thinking there was something wrong with me, like, oh man, I'm stupid, or why am I not getting this? And it was like, no, I had really hard things going on in the home. And I do have to say, because my dad will probably be listening to this, he worked a lot and he did his best. And yes, he was gone a lot, but man, when he was home, he was home. I was a hardcore daddy's girl. But he was gone. And then there was my mom, who she had a hard childhood, and there was verbal and physical abuse, and she didn't have what I feel like my generation has been getting more of like therapy and wellness training, and she didn't have that. So her way of coping with those really hard things was alcohol and drugs and shopping. And I need to be clear. None of that was okay. But I understand it more now because life is really hard. I've been fortunate enough that I have a really great community. My faith, my church family, also like, they're like, you gotta get some therapy. So
Where did you start understanding that so much of what you internalized was actually conditional or due to an environment?
studying, like I said, I was sitting in bed reading this textbook, and I was like, oh. And I was reading this textbook for a class, and I just started crying in bed because I'm like, oh, I'm not stupid. It's not me. Like, I had cement roadblocks due to things that were going on in my home. Like, and it was so freeing. But also it was, like I said, some of my best teachers have been my kids, have been my students. I say my kids, they're not my kids, but kids that I have taught or worked with in some capacity. Like, when I worked at a preschool and this behavioral specialist came along and taught us strong sitting and breathing exercises, speaking with my student, I mean, like, you know what, bud? I am angry right now too. Can we do this together? And so strong sitting with my kids, like, they didn't know it, nor should they have, but I was in that moment healing as much as I was teaching them to do it, I was also learning with them of how to emotionally regulate, how to calm my body and my nervous system down, and how to speak truth to myself. Because, yeah, you have to those neural pathways when you're learning all those things, like, oh man, I'm stupid, there's something wrong with me. You got to do that work to redirect those pathways and to crush down those cement blocks. And you're like, no, I'm not stupid. This is hard, and I'm not alone. So I got to do that with other moms and other kids. We got to lift each other up and speak truth to each other of like, no, you're doing great. You've got this. How can I help you? So that part of it was oddly a textbook. And also practicing that with other moms and other children that I was working with at the time. Where, as far as like understanding my mom more and being able to forgive her, because I was just an angry person of like, man, why can't you just be my mom? Like, why can't you just be here for me? And that is valid. And as an adult, in having things that I didn't grow up with, that I'm now having to learn and break these generational unhealthy cycles, but I'm having to learn it. And I'm like, man, my mom wasn't offered this.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's almost like it goes from anger to from maybe compassion.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
If you don't have the tools to know how to deal with something in a healthy way, what are you going to turn to, Yes, I'm a passionate advocate for youth, but now I really desire to come alongside of families as a whole. And that's why I got involved with Beautiful Blessings. That's why I got in, that's why I was passionate and was like, I met Sharise and she told me, about this daycare to combat poverty, where her goal, number one, is absolutely to make the children feel safe, but she is coming alongside women who have been horribly mistreated. And they've suffered injustice that no human being should ever have to go through. Like Sharise was amazing in that she saw not only, because I feel like it's easier to be like the kids, and absolutely, 100%. But you also need to like really help that kid succeed. You need to come alongside not only them, but the family. You have got to come alongside those moms, because I may not have any children of my own, but kids are really hard. I know this from nannying, from teaching, from doing youth programs and coming alongside. Like, moms don't get to clock out. I do.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And my mom had nobody.
Yeah.
She had no one. And all of her friends, the people, the circle that she did decide to go to, were people who were also neglecting their kids and drinking and partying and just looking for the escape, which that's in every human being, by the way. Our tendency is to want to run away, I think. And again, she just wasn't given those tools and those resources to how to deal with the hard things of life and the hard things of motherhood in a healthy way.
People know what to do, but they'll do what they know. So that's where that empowerment, that tool, that learning, that community is so powerful. One of the top markers for the future success of a child, their development and their ability to succeed, is the quality and the happiness of the mom, especially the mom, because there's something about that maternal bond and energy. Dads are important, very important.
Yes.
Providers, balance. I really believe in, like, there's masculine and feminine and both nurture. But studies show that the marker, that the predictor for the long-term success of a child is the happiness, the quality of the happiness of the mom. It's not whether or not they're rich. It's not, wealth is not a marker. How fancy the house is, how many gadgets or toys or a child has. If the mother is unhappy, then that affects the child greatly on every developmental front. Thank you for sharing about your childhood.
Yeah.
That's a place we all go in order to be able to know where we want to go, right?
Talking about my childhood, that's when people go, oh, that's why. Okay. Yeah, just because, like you were saying, it's not, no matter where I go, whether I'm here in Twin Falls, Idaho, doing a youth program, or I'm in Kinshasa, Congo, working with Beautiful Blessings, it doesn't matter where I go. There are children everywhere. There are moms, dads, families everywhere that need to be lifted up. So I think it's just, with my childhood and my experience and now being an adult and understanding my mom more, I'm like, okay, no matter where I am, it's not about being in a specific place. It's just wherever you are, we've got to be lifting each other up.
It's universal.
Yeah.
It really is. Tell me about Beautiful Blessings. How did you come to know about Beautiful Blessings? What was it? What moment was it that you decided that you have to be a part of this? It called you.
Yeah. So I am Christian. My faith, my relationship with God is everything to me. And I was just coming to a point where I'm like, man, I really love educating, but I don't know if I want to teach in the public school system. So it was really just wrestling with, I had this plan and I've been working towards this plan, and then COVID happened, and I'm like, I think a lot of the people who I talked with, we were kind of waiting for things to get better after COVID, and things just got harder. And I also noticed, I had so many students who were coming back to my desk or coming to my classroom by lunch, and there was just so much that they were dealing with. And, honestly, I got to a point where I'm like, I couldn't care less about your GPA. I care about you as a person. Teachers do make an impact. But I think in order to make the impact that I wanted to make, I don't know if teaching was the right choice for me personally. So I took some time and went away to be with God and ask, like, okay, if this isn't it, what's next? And I just felt like he was putting Africa on my heart, and I've never had the desire to go to Africa. I had a plan for my life, and things just have not gone according to my plan, thankfully. And so I just started kind of knocking on doors and talking with different people. And some good friends of mine, they put me in touch with Sharise. And I was just like a self-conscious, I was like, hey, you don't know me, but you're about to. Just kind of like, hey, this might sound weird, but this is what I feel like God has been on my heart. Can you tell me more about you and what you do in Congo? And oh man, she shared with me her story, and I think it was in 2017, she just felt like God was calling her to leave everything and go to Congo. So Sharise is only a couple years older than me, and I think she was in her 20s at the time, but she just up and sold everything and moved to Congo. And then
Didn't know the language?
No.
Didn't know anyone there?
No. Yeah. Nope. She just...
Radical changes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love Sharise. She's amazing. And she got plugged in with some other organizations and missionaries who were there. And she was really on her own. She went through Every Child Ministries, but they told her, they're like, we don't have anyone in Congo right now.
Yeah. She's like, you do now.
Yeah. Yeah. She's like, I'm it.
I love that. I love when those kind of radical, it's like, be careful what you pray for. Mm-hmm. However you pray, however you communicate with a higher power, be careful what you put out there, because it will get answered. And then you're like, I'm packing my bags to go where? Exactly. You want me to quit my job, leave everything, sell my house to do what? Yes, because that's how your calling, when it's calling you, when your life purpose, contract, calling, soul, intention is like time to clock in.
Yeah.
It is that intense. It is that radical. It is that, and I use that word because I love that word, because it should be very life-changing.
Yeah.
It should be life-changing for each of us when we're called to be life-changing in other people's lives, right?
Yeah. I love the word intense.
Yes. And so I'm so happy. I think I met you, I'm starting to put all this together. I think I met you before you prayed.
Yeah.
And then next time I saw you, it was like when the prayer was answered, because you're like, out of nowhere, you're like, I'm doing a presentation, I'm going to Africa.
Yep.
And I was like, okay. And then we did a fundraiser, like a little fundraiser at Ulala to help out. I don't know if it helped out.
It did.
But I thought, this never came up. Now it just came up, just randomly, instantly, and I love that it did.
No, so when you and I first met, I was working at the refugee center, and I was also working at the high school. And everyone was like, oh, you got to talk to Liyah. You got to talk to Liyah. She loves helping with the youth. And so I was putting together a backpack drive for our kids in South Park.
We met. That's right. Yeah. I forgot about that. We did. We met, and that was during COVID. And you did so cleverly and creatively and
We were outside.
And according to the rules, you were outside. They were spread out, and I remember that you did a beautiful job having all the kiddos out there. And we did like. Why do they get backpacks if they weren't going to school?
we did a beautiful job because people were going back to school.
Okay.
We were in South Park, and so
The Children's Museum was there.
yes, we partnered with the Children's Museum, and we had activities. It was all outdoors, and we got to have activities, and we had, I think, did we have food?
There was some food.
Yeah.
There was, I believe, some food. Yeah.
We partnered with some friends and local churches and had food, and I think like ice cream sandwiches, and the kids got to do activities. And then you brought a bunch of backpacks, which really helped us. And we had backpacks donated from other people in the community, and
The kids loved it.
oh yeah,
And I'm so glad you brought this up, that so there was COVID, which is a big conversation, and lots of versions of how people live through that. And especially with our youth, especially with our young people, they never got to acclimate back to normality. They didn't really get a chance to even like adjust back psychologically, emotionally, socially into the classroom, into school. It just went from like hitting the brakes fast while you're going, speeding, right? Regular life. And you're stuck at home now. And then you're back in school. And there's just no resource, nothing, to really kind of help them. Maybe some schools offered it a little bit here and there to maybe some students, but I feel like as a student, like generation that went through that, there could have been maybe some acclimation time or just time to at school in the classroom, but not necessarily just hitting the books right away, but actually just going through addressing the mental health of it, addressing the impact, the deep impact of having something like that occur at such a formative time in their life. It definitely would have helped the adults too, because they didn't experience any kind of phasing back in, really. And people still struggle with that. I mean, it still presents in our society. People do still struggle with what happened during COVID to them inside.
Yeah. I love the people that I worked with, and they were just vulnerable with their students in the same way that their students were being vulnerable with them, of like, I'm with you, and the feelings that you have are valid. Like, this is hard. And we were, because it's really hard when you're frustrated and you're exhausted, but it's a little bit easier if you know that you're not the only one and that you're not in it alone. Of like, especially I think for our younger kids, of like just being able to validate them and meet them where they're at. Like, no, yeah, this is really hard, and I'm feeling it too. As hard as it was, I think that we rediscovered some humanity in ourselves and other people, and there was some understanding that was given to us when we were coming out of, being locked in, or like when we started coming up, or like people had conversations, and
we started really affording to one another grace.
Yeah.
And it was so hopeful, and to see that last. And I'm still seeing it last, and I hope it continues to last. It's
and grow.
Grow. And some days I'm like, wow, people really forgot quickly. They really forgot quickly, and they don't extend we are one
quick
another
to forget.
grace anymore. And then I'll see it again. Working with the public, it's such a gift, and I'll see it again, and I think, yes, like, thank you for that time, for teaching us that, and just activating that in us and in our spirit and in our communities. Tell me a little bit about, you make the decision, or God plants it on your heart.
Yeah.
And so there's a prayer.
So I met with, or we spoke over WhatsApp, which if, like, with the passport thing of like how many people didn't have a passport, I'm surprised by how many people don't use WhatsApp.
Right.
It's a really great app. And I was able to talk and video chat with people in Congo, or when I was in Congo, people back home. WhatsApp is I think it's a great app, and it's not social media. Sharise and I started chatting and calling over WhatsApp, and she told me her story of how she sold everything and went to Congo, got plugged in this really great community, and then partnered with a Tabitha Center. And this Tabitha Center was teaching reading and writing to Congolese women, and they were also teaching them a trade. Now, because of the war, and because of a lot of things, but one of the major effects of the ongoing war that's been happening in Congo is that it has left particularly women and children in a bad place and being abused and neglected and left behind and seen as less than. So these women are going to this Tabitha Center. They're learning to read and write. They're learning a trade. But they can't afford childcare. And a lot of these moms on average have 8 children that they're trying to raise in extreme levels of poverty on their own. So
Without a social net, without
Yeah.
what we have pantries or welfare and a lot of those kind of safety nets.
There's very I don't think there's anything like that, at least that I knew of in my time that I was there. There was like no food programs or anything like that. But Sharise partnered with this Tabitha Center, and she also had the good common sense of asking, what is the need? Because I think that's a mistake that's often made, is we go in and we think that we know what people need.
Right.
But she went and she asked and she listened.
Listen to them. Yeah.
And the need was childcare. So she started this preschool, works with the kids. She always said to me, because I'm a geek about curriculum and phonemic awareness, and I want to get into all of that. And she's like, she always kept reminding me, yes, but number one, these kids need to feel safe. And because of my story, like that always hit me like, oh, yes, this has to happen. And just watching her hold the babies, and not only hold the babies, but how she came alongside moms and her staff, how she just was on and therefore, and for the purpose of like, you're safe, you're welcome. She did that and came alongside women and children. And so when she told me her story, I was like, oh man, where do I sign up? Because I felt so connected with it. And then I got to go visit. That was one of my first days there in Congo. I think, yeah, we gave me a couple days to get over the jet lag. And then I got to go visit Beautiful Blessings and see firsthand, because I'd been hearing about it, raise support and working towards it for 3 years. And then I was finally there, and I got to see the kids, and I got to see Sharise and the staff.
What was that like? What was that?
Oh man, Liyah. It was, again, people in Kinshasa are warm and kind, and they're like, "Mbote," or they'd say hello. And they were just, everyone was like, we're so glad. The staff were like, we're so glad you're finally here. We've been looking forward to you coming. It was just, man, it was, I say I didn't realize how big my family was. Because going to Congo and making these connections with these amazing people, like Mama Taro is my mama, and Sharise is my sister, and the women at Beautiful Blessings, like, you know, my family is so much bigger than I thought it was. And as scary and hard and exhausting as it was, there's just something about not only Congo, but Congolese people, as I experience them, was they are, with all the suffering they've gone through, with all the hard things, they are joyful. They are kind and they are gentle. And when they have every excuse to be bitter, angry, shut the world out, screw you, they are welcome. And we're so glad you're here. And they're just, man, they're lovely. And it was, they taught me about love and what it is to love your neighbor.
Yeah.
So I went there to help them. And
isn't it so incredible that sometimes it's the people who have the least that are the most generous.
Yeah.
They're just so giving of not maybe materialistic, but of their heart, of their attentiveness, of their genuine respect and seeing of you and valuing you as a human being. And that is generosity.
Oh, 100%.
Generosity is not just funds and charity and things.
It's
and
time.
It's seeing the bigness of another human's worth, dignity, spirit. That's that loving your neighbor as yourself. And people, when they love you in this big way, they help you love yourself in a big way. That statement, I used to really meditate on that. I grew up in the church. I'm an Orthodox Christian, but I grew up in the church, Christian church. My father worked there for 11 years. So I don't want to say I just studied the Bible. I mean, we functioned in the Bible all day long.
You lived it.
You live
it.
You
live it out. Yeah.
Even if you didn't want to study the Bible that day, there's a poster right there and a scripture right there. And it's there. You're saturated in it. And that particular statement, I've learned to understand it, that it is, first of all, loving yourself in a righteous, correct way. Not this like slogan, self-love. I'm talking about your divine essence, which is we're made in the Creator, by the Creator. Only from that place of seeing that in your own creation, only in that righteous way, in that virtuous love of yourself, can you ever love another human being.
Yes.
Because you're seeing their dignity, their humanity, their divinity.
Yeah. I think, it's interesting. When Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, kind of implies that we're supposed to love ourselves.
Yeah, think about that. If you mistreat yourself, if you hate yourself, if you don't nourish yourself, if you self-harm, and from that place you're going to love your neighbor, then what you'll have is a society that doesn't love one another.
Yeah.
Because
there's a lack of generosity, because it's like you got to take for yourself. And there's another excellent I've been listening to this podcast where they talk about generosity. Bible Project, they have an amazing generosity, I think it's like 4 episodes. But there's this idea of that is sold to a lot of us. Like, you have to fend for yourself. You got to take. And
we were talking about how sometimes it's difficult to receive help or ask for help.
Yes, because I think a lot of people have had that experience of like, we ask for help and then we're told we're too much or we're too needy or whatever that is. And for me, going to Congo healed that.
How?
Just it's so hard
the people,
for everyone.
The experience,
the people who were strangers, people who didn't know me, were incredibly gracious and kind. And in Congo, everyone is struggling. Everyone, like, it's not one part of Twin Falls or one part of Idaho that's like a poor neighborhood. It is everywhere. And so people just get it. They're like, no, yeah, this is hard. And it was so healing. But also I learned with that, I think when I ask for help, I often have an idea. I don't think I do, but I do have an idea of where or how that help should come about, and more specifically, like who that help should come from. And like I just really feel the need to say this. Within churches, like I often feel, and I'm so guilty of this, and that's why like I feel like I need to say something, is I feel like a lot of that is like it's the pastor's responsibility, or it's the pastor's wife responsibility to heal this thing or to do this thing. And pastors are shepherds and they have great responsibility, yes, but a pastor is not community. Like there's a reason there's the church. It is a whole community of people.
Body.
And it can never be on one person.
Yeah.
So not only did I need to learn to ask for help and that I was okay, but I needed to learn to ask different people and not always go to the same person, because I think when you depend on any one person to try and satisfy all your needs, that is crushing. Because I've also been on the receiving end of that. Mm-hmm. But I also think be okay if the help that you ask for doesn't come from who you think it should. So if you ask for a need of like, hey, I need a meal, or hey, I'm struggling right now, and the pastor or the person you think it should come from, your family or whoever, of like who should really be there for you. Because I also think that's something like, you know, it's the nuclear family. And Congo, it's not the nuclear family. It's big, it's a village. And so I have been shocked and surprised by who shows up. And there is something, yes, you have your close friends, you have like your people, but there's something so beautiful when someone who you just met,
or a total stranger,
meets your need. I think so. You're
meeting their need too.
Yeah.
That asking is what they have to share.
It's a privilege.
Yeah.
I think like, you know, it's, you know, I know it is for me when someone's like, hey, I really need this. And I'm like, I have that.
Yeah.
I can totally do that. And then it's like, thank you for trusting me enough to be vulnerable with this part of your life. Because it like, asking for help is vulnerable. It is risky because
we don't want to feel let down, or sometimes we don't want to feel like we're a burden.
Oh, that's a big one, feeling like a burden.
So the framing of that even has to change, of thinking, you know, when we're asking for help, it isn't easy.
Yeah.
It isn't easy, especially if in childhood, especially growing up, if in society it was made that you didn't feel to ask for help. A lot of our young people, sometimes it's kind of later and they just don't ask for help. And I think that we have to normalize that a little more, make it a strength and not a weakness, because when we ask for help, we really are asking for another human being's participation.
We're doing
in navigating
life together.
Yeah, navigating life together. And so that is a beautiful thing. That is not a burden. That is a beautiful, healthy way to be community, you know, to navigate community.
And to be okay. So, you know, I was going through a really hard time and went to a friend and I was like, I need more. My friend was so incredibly gracious in that she was like, I want to do more. I want to be here for you in the way that you need me to, but I can't. And she was vulnerable with me. And she's like, This is what's happening. This is what we're going through as a family. And I was like, oh, okay. But that clarity is kindness.
It is kindness.
It is. It really is. And so,
Not that she's not wanting to, but at that
No.
time she understands that she, isn't available to.
yeah, we've got to be able to ask for help and receive yeses and nos, or
Yes.
not yet.
And the no's lead us
Yeah.
into another
Another
better
relationship.
path, another relationship.
Yeah.
Tell me about Beautiful Blessings, how someone can learn more about it. Is there a website? How can they help and participate,
Yes.
support this child care charity,
Yeah.
nonprofit?
Absolutely. First of all, prayer is huge. If you can keep Sharise and the staff and the moms and the kids in your prayers and thoughts, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, if you have the chance and the resources to go to Congo and meet Sharise and the staff, that is also great. Like you said, we're going to put the link in the description, and you can click on the link to Sharice's webpage. You can send her an encouraging note to let her know that you're thinking of her.
How can people help financially? I know a lot of times I even get concerned if it's sending money overseas. So what is the most secure, direct way to financially support Beautiful Blessings and the women and the children of this nonprofit?
So if you click on the link, that will take you directly to a webpage that was designed for Sharise. So it's Sharice's webpage. The money is sent to an organization that Sharise is partnered with called Every Child Ministries, and it's the most secure way to send Sharise money. And so every little bit helps. If you want to give monthly and have a recurring donation or a one-time donation. So the Beautiful Blessings location that is in Kaluka, to keep that up and running and paying staff and feeding the kids, that's about $2,000 a month is what the costs are. Now we are praying and hoping and pushing and fighting for a second location, because this is, again, a great organization that really helps moms and children and just families in Congo. So with that second location, that's going to be $1,500 a month to run that second location. To like one big total cost for both locations for 3 years is going to be $125,000. That is the total number. Again, every little bit helps. If you want to give a one-time donation or a reoccurring, or if you want to give one donation of $125,000, I mean, that would be incredible. But again, every little bit helps.
And another way people can really help is share this video and invite
Yes.
you to come speak at, if it's locally, or they invite you to come speak and share your story. What a great cause for congregations to adopt and pull their resources together and, adopt this nonprofit and make it like a sister organization to their congregation to
Yeah.
support, be a part of the mothers' lives and a part of Sharice's work she's doing there. I could see that being a great cause for congregations here in our Magic Valley, or even outside of Idaho too.
Oh, absolutely. I am a big advocate for having our local churches partner globally. We are the church. We are, we are one in Christ. Even just sharing this video with other people, that is a huge help. It does make quite the difference.
And it does. Every local action has a global impact. And
Generosity isn't just money. It's time and thought, and even just an encouraging note, which I love on ECM's website. You can even just send her a note of like, I'm praying for you, or I'm thinking of you.
I love that too.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it how on a local level here, we can make such a global impact, put our faith into actions, extend generosity, advance each other grace
Yeah.
and kindness, and really live our Christian values, our human values, our moral values. And that has been your bigger story. And I am so happy that I met you
Same.
randomly, and I'm so happy that I keep meeting you as your story evolves. And thank you for making the time to travel and taking all of us on the journey with you to Congo, and for coming back to Twin Falls and enriching our community deeper and more, and especially the work you do with our youth.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of yours, so thank you so much, Lita. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I hope we do this again.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.